Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So we have a lot of economic metrics that dropped today that are just massive for the economy and a big victory for President Trump nonetheless. Because you look at this, inflation. This was something under Biden. We saw rates as high as 9%, and eventually it did cool down, but it still was year over year above 3%. Now it's fallen to 2.1%, which is the lowest point in the last 4 years. It keeps dropping. When you look at certain metrics, they've actually dropped even further. Last month we had the report where grocery prices actually fell a little bit instead of going up by less, which was happening over the previous year. But now inflation has fallen to 2.1%, the lowest point in the last 4 years. And obviously we're not having any deflation, but the fact that it's slowing is still good. Year over year, 2.1%. Hopefully it can get below 2% soon enough. But on top of it, it's like we heard the tariffs are going to cause rampant inflation. And it's true that we haven't fully seen all the effects from the tariffs just yet. But this notion that we're going to see 15, 20% inflation on all goods like so many people were fear-mongering about has not really yet transpired. And if anything, it just makes the experts look dumb. A lot of the panicans, the people that like to sit there and panic about things that they just have been wrong about time and time and time again. And that is true. But it's not just inflation, because if inflation keeps going up but wages don't grow, that's something that is going to affect people's personal finances. But still, we've actually seen wages grow faster than inflation, which is more important because look at the first 4 months of 2025. In 2023, you had a 0.8% total increase in incomes. That's not good enough when you have a lot of inflation. 2024, 1.2% total increase. But 2025, you saw 2.6% total increase when you had, expectations that were about a third of that. So you're seeing this explosion of incomes in terms of historical averages and expectations. And this is something that is huge because you're seeing wages rise and you're seeing them rise faster than inflation. And it does kind of potentially prove the hypothesis correct about the self-deportations, because if you look at the jobs numbers, you'll see that we have created about 1 million new jobs since Donald Trump has taken office. But we have lost plenty of government jobs, but also jobs from non-native born Americans. So the million figure, it refers to private sector jobs for native-born Americans. Those have been up by 1 million. And people have said, oh, no, these are people that are just leaving the workforce and they have to be replaced, these elitists have said. But in reality, there's a lot of people that have just been super disaffected, that have not been in the workforce, that are now starting to re-enter the workforce. And wages, as a result, are growing. So you had an economy for the previous 4 years that even though if they had a good vital statistic here and there, like the unemployment rate or jobs numbers or whatever, it was mostly fake. And the people who were benefiting from the economy, many of them were not even citizens. They couldn't even vote. And that's partially why you did see this disconnect between the actual voter and whatever the so-called experts were saying about, no, the economy's strong. It's like nobody actually saw that. Even people who were well off understood that the economy was relatively sluggish, and it was not something that was benefiting the average American in particular, and that helped Donald Trump win by the margin that he did in the 2024 election. And even more on the tariffs. I mean, the trade deficit has plummeted in April. You saw the trade deficit rise at the start of the year. It was above $150 billion in January when Donald Trump took office. It is now down to $87.6 billion, which I believe is the lowest mark that we've seen on this chart, or close to that, which is absolutely huge. And hopefully it can continue to go down, and tariffs can kind of level the playing field in a way to increase revenues for us and also allow more investment in the U.S., which is definitely going to boost all kinds of revenue. It'll boost the GDP, it'll boost the tax revenues that the government's going to be able to collect, and that's going to get the economy roaring. And when you talk about the latest economic statistics for the GDP projections, which again have been wrong, and they were wrong last cycle from the Atlanta Fed, but they also underestimated. They thought we were going to see negative 3% GDP growth, and then it ended up being just minus 0.3%. I think they revised it to minus 0.2%. So a lot of people are saying recession, 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 because a period of 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth would classify a recession, unless you're Biden, which they'll give you a free pass for ignoring the definition of a recession for one reason or another. But you had a lot of excess imports because of the tariff fears in the first quarter, and that is kind of what caused that to happen. But now you're seeing the economy rebound, and the forecasts have now gone up to 3.8% for quarter two. So are we going to get that? I don't know. But are we going to get a recession? Probably not. And I think that that's the most important thing, because you have a lot of people that are having a lot of these fears about a recession. And you have some people that will make the argument that the economy is fake and a recession might not actually have that much of a negative impact and it could force like the Fed to cut the rates or whatever. I understand that argument. I'm just saying that if you are able to revive the economy and have the metrics that matter for most people just kick into full gear and be a huge positive without a recession, you would have to imagine that that would be better. So we'll see what happens, but just 9% chance now of negative GDP growth in quarter two, according to Polymarket. That means you're probably not going to get a recession, which means that Democrats aren't going to try to leverage that as a talking point ahead of the midterms. And they've been trying to go out there and sabotage Donald Trump's agenda in every way possible. We understand that when it came down to the court cases and the judges and what they've been able to do, strike down tariffs, strike down executive actions. Obviously, the Supreme Court has not been perfect in terms of their ruling. You have two actually conservative justices on the court, sometimes three if Gorsuch wants to play ball. But we have had some wins between that most recent ruling at the appellate court level and now you have this right here, because Biden's mass migration pipeline is over. You saw him decide to allow people, hundreds of thousands of people from third world countries, to be dumped into middle America. You saw Springfield, Ohio. You saw towns across Pennsylvania, like Charleroi, Pennsylvania, plenty of other places where you had mass migration. You had a migrant crisis. Biden's migrant crisis, they would dump these basically illegal aliens, because I can't really tell the difference. You're just waving a magic wand over these people, allowing them to download an app and get residency. Donald Trump is canceling the residency for those people. He's not going to renew it. He's telling them that they need to self-deport or be forcefully deported. And now Donald Trump is going to have this victory because he's going to end Biden's mass migration scheme that he had going on. And you had plenty of judges decide to obstruct him and strike it down for one reason or another. I think it's largely because it's a mix of partisan politics and the fact that these people genuinely despise our country, because I can't think of any other way that these people would want to do such a thing. Be rooting against the best interests of the country, allowing hundreds of thousands of people from third world nations, unvetted, by the way, dumped into small towns in Ohio. They're not assimilating. There's massive problems, but these people think that's just completely fine. They don't live there. These elites, they don't have to deal with the problems that come with mass migration of people that just don't happen to be all that culturally compatible with the towns that they're being placed in and the towns that they're basically overrunning. And it's funny, because they were saying this is misinformation about Springfield. And then Springfield, Ohio, voted Republican for the first time in decades as a city, and the county, which already was red, moved right by 9 percentage points. So Donald Trump bringing that issue to the forefront actually just caused him to gain support in these places. Democrats said, no, he's wrong. He's out of touch. These claims are awful. He's being a horrible person for making these claims. Yeah, didn't exactly resonate with the voters in terms of their response to Donald Trump. So either way, they take the L on that, and Donald Trump takes the victory. So you have a lot of things coming together here. You have trade talks. You have talks in foreign conflicts across the world that Donald Trump is trying to end. He's trying to get these leaders to come to the table. It's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. But is he making progress in terms of the economy? Yes. Is he making progress in terms of trying to pass this bill so we can get more funding for ICE and mass deportations and extending his tax cuts? Yes. Of course, there's going to be plenty of obstructionists within the party, and he's going to have to work with the Senate in order to pass a viable version of the big, beautiful bill. But so far, so good in terms of a lot of these economic metrics that we've gotten. And this is a wave of momentum. And he has to ride this wave of momentum ahead of 2026. And if he does so, you possibly could see him really cement his legacy, expand his trifecta, make sure that whoever his successor ends up being, probably Vance, that they would be the favorite come 2028. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.